We'll hang out and watch 227 and shit. What's up, y'all? Episode 227. Here we go. Requiem for a Tuesday. Adam Pecora here. How the hell are ya? Rate, review, and subscribe. Check out the links in the description below. Listen to this show. Share the show. Do whatever. All right. We're back. Don't feel like elongating the intro for once. Isn't that a gift? All I do. I give these little gifts. I don't know what that means. Anywho, excited for this episode. I didn't know that I was going to be going into this movie, but it's a good one, folks. Really sticks with you. Makes you think. Think about it a day or two after. Sits with you a little bit. I'd like to have seen it again, frankly. Because now it's been a little too much time. I went during the week. I went on like a third. Did I go on Friday? There's no way it was only on Friday. I don't know. Eddington, great movie. We're starting up top. Cold hard facts. I'm a little off my game here. Stressful drive home. I had a lady honking at me. Did I hesitate a little bit? Sure. Justifiably so. There was a bus. People were driving in front of the bus. You know, I'm not going to just assume the bus ain't coming. Anyway, it's fine. We're all alive. I made it. Recording. But I'm a little frazzled. There's some turn situations. It was a whole deal. I thought this movie could have went a very bad direction because it was, you know, the general overview is this is a modern Western set during COVID. You know, they show that there's going to be a lot of tension, scrolling on your phone, people with the mask, the no mask, the whole thing. I thought there was a chance that this is just Aren't the No Maskers crazy as a movie for some reason? Which, you know, kind of does happen. But I thought that was going to be it. It was going to be this, like, agenda movie. Or that there was a chance of that. Because I was interested no matter what. Because I thought the teaser was that. I was teased and I was intrigued. You know, it's just doom scrolling, whole bunch of crazy shit happening. You know, you got Austin Butler's cult shit. You know, you got Pedro Pascal politician bullshit. You know, what could happen in this movie? Because they're not showing you anything. Even in the first trailer, I would say, like the first full-length trailer, still was kind of like, I don't really know what this is about. And that's a good thing. I mean, that is what a good trailer should execute. It should want you to see get you to want to see the movie without ruining any of the major details. We have gone away from that dramatically in recent years where it's like, we're going to cut up a highlight reel of all the best parts and we're going to make sure you know the story beginning to end for some reason, which I'm not a fan of. But this movie avoided all of that. And so, like a good movie would do, I went and going, what am I getting myself into here? Well, let's find out, you know, which, you know, if you have a little more curiosity going in, I feel like that does kind of enhance your experience, assuming the movie delivers. And, I mean, I don't think there's any way to have predicted what happens in this movie. So, and by the way, one last thing to add. I'm not, you know, I know Ari Aster is incredibly acclaimed and, you know, he may be in publication or even in general, I don't really know, viewed as like one of the best directors of his generation. While I don't deny his ability, the movies haven't been there. So maybe I don't like his writing that much. I don't know. You can argue whatever you want to argue. I'm just saying Hereditary didn't really do it for me. I don't even know if I finished it, to be honest. And you could say fuck you for that, and that's fine. But, you know, didn't drag me in. Midsommar, you know, fine. Solid. But, you know, I can take it or leave it. I have no no desire to see it again. I'll watch it if that were to somehow happen. But not a particular favorite. And Beau is Afraid, I fell asleep, and my girlfriend tells me that I said I didn't like what I saw anyway, which I don't remember that. I genuinely don't really remember any of it, but I guess I was bored and didn't like it. So there's that. This movie is a great encapsulation of 2020. And you know, you hear all these like, people don't want to see this movie because they don't want to relive that. It's like, there's movies about all the worst things that have ever happened. I mean, countless movies about 9/11. World War II, you know, do we need to say more about that? I mean, yes, I'm for it, is what I'm saying. But, you know, like Vietnam, has there been enough? But that was terrible, you know. I guess the argument for COVID is that it's something everybody actually experienced. My point being, though, like, it's fine when you exploit other people's experiences, just not yours. It covers all of it. And while the story may be a little messy and jumbled and, you know, there's maybe a few things that I didn't absolutely love, I wouldn't call this like a perfect movie. And I hesitate to say it's like a masterpiece or anything like that, but it's very, very good. I already know I want to watch it again because it is both, while it nails like the think piece element of, hey, here's a piece of history. You guys remember a time like this? Remember how crazy everybody was? You know, kind of forces some reflection, whatever. Just the general themes make you think, but at the same time, it's fun and it's entertaining and it's funny. You know, you don't laugh a lot in a movie theater these days because, you know, we know about the comedy tragedy shortage thing. I was laughing, which was nice. It seemed like it was going to be a pretty serious film, which it is overall, but it's just got a little bit of everything. It is a little bit of a Western, but it's also kind of a thriller at times. It's certainly an action movie at points. It's never really quite true like horror. It is gory. Yeah, just a whole lot going on. So I guess I will dive into plot points because I don't really know what more I can say without doing that. So I don't even know if this is a real town. It may or may not be a real town, but it's like a town bordering a native reservation in New Mexico called Eddington. Who would have guessed it? Joaquin Phoenix is the sheriff. He's kind of a bumbling idiot. And you kind of want him. You kind of assume that he's going to be this like hard-nosed right-winger. But no, he's just kind of like a sensitive loser guy. Which you find out throughout the movie. You kind of don't really know what you're getting into at any point in time. And it just kind of starts where he's like, let the guy without a mask in the grocery store, please. And, you know, there's a big fight. You know, people are yelling at the sheriff about a mandate. It's like he's the sheriff. There's a fun irony in that. And, you know, whatever. I'm not acting like I'm one of those fucking, they took my freedom guys. I put it on. You just put it on. It's just, for me, it's just easier to not yell at people all the time. If you're a psycho, you'll call me a compliant sheep. If you're rational, you just be like, yeah, I did the same thing. If it helps, that's great. Whatever. I would just like some cereal. You know? So anyway, there's a whole confrontation at the grocery store. Everybody's mean, yelling at each other. The mayor's also there. It's obviously a very small town. They clearly have some type of like historical beef on top of this. And yada, yada, yada. Joaquin Phoenix is married to Emma Stone, who's clearly in some type of like weird depressive state. Meanwhile, he wants to have a baby with her because he's just in love with her. And, you know, again, just like a simple fool type of guy. And she is just going through it like crazy. And her mom also lives with them. And she is into like Alex Jonesy type stuff. Which leads her daughter to get into weirder stuff, which is Austin Butler's like rape cult thing, like for survivors. But he's clearly just like a freak, weird guy. He eventually goes to their house and is like very clearly like pressing Joaquin Phoenix, who stands up pretty well to this. And he's like, tell your story. And then his story sounds like really absurd and ridiculous. And so Joaquin Phoenix answers like a rational person is thinking, but you wouldn't say. And he's just like, yeah, I just don't really believe that. That just seems like crazy. Anyway, she's very clearly like sucked into that, and that's not great. And after the mask incident, I don't know if anything else really stirs him up, but he basically announces publicly that he's going to run for mayor, like on Facebook. Doesn't discuss it with his wife. She's upset about that. He later, in a campaign thing, claims that the mayor at one point assaulted her, impregnated her, and forced her to get an abortion. She, of course, denies it. How does she deny it? Video. So they're both just posting videos. Neither of them at either point spoke to each other about any of it. So that's like an interesting little nugget. Anyway, the mayor also warns him at one point, like, you don't really know what you're getting into, because what they also reveal is that he signed some deal that's really bad for the city to build this like tech hub thing that's going to like deplete the town of all of its resources. But then they also show him at home and he's not following any of the rules. He's not wearing a mask, being an asshole, you know, little Gavin Newsom-y thing in there. So they keep painting the picture of like, it's almost like it's just rational, I would say, at the beginning. And you have no idea where the movie is going. And then it just keeps spiraling and everything keeps getting more and more twisted. And you start to realize that everybody's kind of nuts in this whole thing. And there's like this homeless guy who wanders around town, but nobody ever really actually helps him. He's just kind of like the center of everybody's argument the whole time, which also just kind of feels indicative of the internet. And so the election is kind of going on, and then all of a sudden in the movie, the George Floyd thing happens, and the protests happen in Eddington, and he's kind of like, we think this was bad. Like, we don't agree with it. So it kind of like shows you a cop's perspective, which, you know, whatever. But anyway, there's all of a sudden like rioting and looting in this small town in New Mexico, and they have no control over it because he is not a competent sheriff, right? Meanwhile, there's a lot of fun commentary too about like all these white kids, like, you know, like getting super into like anti-racist stuff. And then the kid's dad literally, like, while he's explaining this stuff, he's just like, you're a fucking retard, which was very funny to throw in the middle of the movie. And then that involves this storyline with one of Joaquin's sheriffs who's like kind of dating a girl who's like 18 or maybe even underage. But then he later says that that's not true. And then it's kind of revealed that he's like the least fucked up guy in the police force. So the movie does this interesting job of showing like the good and bad sides of everyone, like the nuance of everything, which is, you know, what is missing in this online only culture during COVID, which leads to everything that is still how it is. So that's not great. But so it's the good and bad of everybody, and then Joaquin Phoenix goes to like a house party because there's a noise complaint, and it's at the mayor's house, and he's like, turn the volume down. He doesn't want to turn the volume down. They go into a back and forth, and the mayor just smacks the shit out of the sheriff. Now, he's literally the sheriff. In my mind, you know, he's going to beat the shit out of him, but no, he just cowers and fears, and that's when you really learn that Joaquin Phoenix's character is just a big coward. That becomes abundantly clear right away. It's a little too early on when he can't wrestle the homeless guy down effectively, but whatever. So then, this is when it all just takes a turn. And you're kind of just like, man, so the sheriff's just kind of getting beaten down by his own town. This is rough. Like, what's going to happen? He's going to win the mayor race and turn things around, and it's like, no. Instead, he gets a sniper rifle and he kills the mayor and his son, his young son. It's dark. And now the son did get into multiple confrontations with him and like talk shit to him about his wife. But he's like a young kid. That's what, you know, when you're a teenager, you really try to dig deep. And when you're a kid, it doesn't seem like it means as much as what you're saying anyway. No matter what, you probably shouldn't kill a kid. So I don't even need to make more points than that, but they did have like somewhat of a history, I guess. And that's fucked up. Meanwhile, his wife runs off with Austin Butler after he says that the mayor raped her. Just leaves with them. And yeah, they didn't speak. Like I said, they both posted videos separately on the internet and never spoke. Pretty wild. And then after he murders them, he begins a plot to cover it up. But there's like because they're on the edge of a native reservation, the native police are also investigating it because the property's like right on the border. So, oh, by the way, we know that they have beef with the native people just because of like jurisdiction stuff. But also at the beginning, at the very, very opening scene, Joaquin Phoenix is just sitting in his car alone, and then the native police pull up, and they're like, "You're on native land. Put your mask on." And this is how you first know he's a pussy, basically. You think he's gonna be like I said, I want my freedom. You think he's going to be one of those guys, but he's just like, it's hard for me to breathe. He's just like a little pussy about it. And then they basically threaten him into doing it, and he's sitting in his car alone. So either way, the whole thing is just nonsense, everything about it. So going back to that, so he's extra confrontational now because they already have jurisdictional beef, plus that beef, plus he is guilty of this murder, so he's trying to do everything he can to get him away from it. Meanwhile, he just keeps coming closer and closer to solving it. And the riots are still completely out of control in the town, and they're not really making any progress. They just keep getting more and more involved and then going like viral for intervening because of like bad moments. And, you know, that doesn't mean that every time an incident goes viral, it was just a bad moment in a much crazier situation. That's not necessarily true, but it can be true, I suppose. And, like, there are moments where it's literally like there's so much provocation, and it's more so that he's a pussy that he's not doing anything about it. But he like grabs people's phones, all this crazy shit. And I forget, how does that even really die down? Let me think about that. Okay, right. So he also killed the homeless guy for no reason. And that was just weird. I guess it was just him like snapping, because he really is just getting shit on for the whole first like hour of the movie. And then all of a sudden, so he stages the murder, so it's like he writes like Antifa in it, like in spray paint, like on the dude's wall or whatever. And then right after that, they just cut to a private jet of people with like fucking like ammunition and like a Black Lives Matter flag. So they're like these like crisis actors. And I think it's pretty clearly satirical, but I guess some people, of course, took this movie very seriously as like a right-wing movie, which I definitely don't think is the case. I think it heavily criticizes how stupid both sides of everything were the entire time and still are. Especially with the right-wing mom and all that bullshit. And so they cut to that, and it's just very clearly like, okay, we're the crisis actor, the people that were flown in to protest, whatever type of people. So as this happens, they land, and the native detective figures the whole thing out right as everything is coming out, like in the press and all of that. But Joaquin Phoenix is in the middle of framing his black deputy, the guy who was like maybe or maybe not dating a young child. And they completely frame him for it. But as he's locked up in the jail, all of a sudden, that's when the private jet people kick in and they kidnap that guy and they set him up as bait. And Joaquin Phoenix and the other guy who, co-conspired to set the other dude up, they think that he escaped and is like setting them up. But it turns out that he is rigged with explosives, or there's like a wire or something in front, whatever. Point is, they set off a bomb for getting too close to him, and then all hell breaks loose. And he's trying to warn them, but he has like a gag in his mouth or whatever. He's like, don't come near me. Like, this is crazy. So Joaquin runs away, and he finds them. He's being chased by people with like fucking machine guns and shit just in the dark. And he runs, he knows the route better, I guess, is the logic. So he's able to kind of like outrun them for a little bit, gets into town, breaks into the gun store, loads up. And he just kind of sprays like crazy into the dark, but also with like seemingly no skill all of a sudden, even though he was just a very talented sniper recently. But I guess you could say he's folding under like the pressure because he's a pussy. I don't know. Whatever. So he accidentally shoots the native guy's leg off, and then they fucking shoot him in the head, the people targeting him. You never see them. And after getting around for quite a while and just spraying into the dark, somebody comes at him one-on-one and just fucking stabs him right in the head. It's crazy jarring. And eventually there's like the kid who was like converted to BLM, the guy whose dad yelled at him, I told you earlier. He ends up like saving him because he happened to be in the area and like needed to hide. So he kills like the attacker. And then it just kind of like flashes forward to see like where we're at after all of this. That's kind of the end of it. And it basically reveals that the crisis actors were sent in by the tech company whose entire goal was just to make sure that they got their thing approved. So they needed Pedro Pascal, the mayor, to win the election again because he was signing all the deals already, which is why he did warn Joaquin Phoenix, like, you don't know what you're in for. It really was a deal. And then they kept showing Pedro Pascal at the meeting, at like a city council meeting, like forcing the thing through, even though there were like major concerns because of the resources. But basically the overall message there was that like the company this was going to happen one way or the other is the whole thing. So he was doing it nice and easy, which allowed him, obviously, I assume, to get a large payout as well. But it also weirdly kind of is in the best interest for the town. And like going with And basically that was his reasoning for going with like lockdowns and mandates and all this stuff too, which was like a staunch reason why Joaquin Phoenix opposed him. So clearly once he was murdered, it became clear that Joaquin Phoenix was a threat, so they needed to send in the big guns, essentially. So they win in the end. Joaquin Phoenix does end up being mayor, but he's completely paralyzed from being stabbed in the head. And so his wife's mother-in-law is now the de facto like figurehead mayor. Well, he's the figurehead, but she's kind of like the mayor, and she's just like a spewing right-wing lunatic Alex Jonesy mayor. So she feels like she won, even though the conspiracy literally happened in the town. But she got to be mayor, so she's right about her things because she proved herself right about all the other stuff in her mind by succeeding, even though it's all right in front of them and nobody's doing anything about it. So, like, that's the beautiful irony in that. And then Joaquin Phoenix gets to win as mayor, but obviously he's paralyzed and it's terrible. And all he really wanted was to have, like, a family with his wife, who ends up having a child with crazy Austin Butler. That part of the movie is underdeveloped. I feel like they cut maybe just, like, a scene or two more of him or, like, one of his videos or something. I mean, I did get the gist, but it was kind of unclear why she was so in love with him so quickly, but I guess, you know, crazy during COVID, whatever. We watched a lot of hours so that the damage was done. Sure, that's fine, I guess. And the kid who killed him ended up being a like MAGA influencer kid, and he was like rich and in Florida and like getting laid. And he was basically just trying to get laid the whole time, and that's why it wasn't working. They saw right through it, I guess, at the BLM protest. Anyway, it was excellent. It's amazing, and that's the thing. Like Emma Stone's character technically ends up like happy. She wasn't much of a character anyway, I guess. But you know, she got played technically. Like everybody got played. It was fantastic. It was just great. I'm still thinking about it. I want to see it again. You should go see it. It's not making very much money. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully it'll be streamed a lot when it comes out because just fantastic. I mean, really. So, I mean, maybe the best movie I've seen so far this year, maybe. I didn't look at a list. I hesitate saying that. But I loved it. So shout out Ari Aster. I did not love Happy Gilmore 2. I may finally write a second review on the Substack Champagne video. We'll see. But it was terrible. Not enough that I could even have muster the energy. I saw the Lega sequel remake of I Know What You Did Last Summer. The definition of mid. Nothing else to add. It's exactly like the original movie, from what I gather. So yeah, that was Eddington. Hope you check it out. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What is that from? I don't know. That's from something. That's a bit. Rate, review, and subscribe. Check out all the links in the description below. Possibly a new Substack review coming soon, but I won't promise anything. I'll be back either next week or the week after. We will see. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, rate, review, subscribe, and share, please. Give me to 1 million, whatever. All right, give me to 1 million. And remember, I are fat. You are fat. We are fat. Calculator.